talking about this remarkable NBA playoff season that we've had in this round one is Sports Illustrated's Chris Mannix. Good to see you, Chris.
You too, Rich.
It started a little slow, but now we're cooking with a little bit of gas. What leaps out at you just writ large right now through the first few games of round one?
I think the star turns by a couple of key players is most notable. In the Eastern Conference, you've got Jalen Brunson continuing to prove to people that he is capable of being the number one guy on a championship level team. That was kind of the knock on him when the Knicks signed him. They said, all right, you're paying this guy all this money. He's a really good player, but can he be your number one? Well, he just arguably had the greatest performance in Knicks playoff history against the Sixers in Game 4. He is showing that he can be that number one guy. And out west, it's Edwards, right? Like we knew how good he was coming into this series, but metaphorically putting his foot on the neck of the Phoenix Suns and just stomping them out in 4 games, just playing Bradley Beal literally right off the floor in that Game 4. That's another guy that has taken his game to another level in this playoff. So those two guys have really stood out.
Did Bradley Beal slap Frank Vogel's hand away coming off the court?
And here we are, knives out for Frank Vogel because it's always the coach's fault, right? Like, it's not maybe the multi-billionaire owner that put together this train wreck. I like Matt Ishbia. I sat in his office last fall and had this exact same discussion about the downside of putting a team like this together, and he believed wholeheartedly that there was no downside. Well, this is it. In the NBA, you can't cheat the system. And the system is you've got to go through some growing pains before you get to a championship level. Look at the Denver Nuggets. How many years did they get bounced early in the playoffs till they won at a championship level? Boston has been near the mountaintop a few times, a bunch of conference finals. This is the year people think they are going to get to a championship level. Even Oklahoma City, there was a learning curve there for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and some of those guys. And there'll probably be a learning curve for them in these playoffs. The Suns tried to cheat the system by getting a whole bunch of stars together and hoping that they would mesh in a way that stars very rarely mesh together. Effectively, Phoenix built a team that would have looked pretty awesome in 2010, but isn't really built for modern day NBA. It doesn't have a traditional playmaker. It doesn't have a rim protector. To me, the buck stops at ownership. Matt Ishbia pushed hard to go all in on the Kevin Durant deal, which cost them some draft capital. He pushed hard to get the Bradley Beal trade off the ground and bring Beal in when they didn't really have to do that. And then he traded DeAndre Ayton, who, was kind of a malcontent in Phoenix, but Frank Vogel, the hand-picked head coach that he signed, has had the most success when he has had a big 7-footer backstopping that defense. Roy Hibbert in Indiana, Dwight Howard and company in LA when they won a championship. These decisions that were made at an ownership level have put the Suns in the predicament that they're in.
And they don't really have, what's the next draft capital that they have? Right?
They've got, because of the Stepien rule,
right,
where you can't trade draft picks in multiple years, they will have a first round pick, but I don't think they have control over their first until 2030, 2031, right, because of the swap rights that exist. So they're in a tough spot. I don't know their pathway to getting better. Look, they've got free agents of their own. Royce O'Neal is going to be a free agent this summer. They've got a couple other supporting cast members that are going to be a free agent. There's going to be roster turnover. And you look at the West, is there any move they can make that is going to put them on Oklahoma City's level, on Denver's level? Look down the bracket. Houston's going to be better next year. The West is loaded, not just in the short term. And this Phoenix team is a short-term team. Kevin Durant is not getting any younger. I just don't see their path to becoming a title contender.
Chris Mannix here on the Rich Eisen Show. So the Mavs and the Clippers, boy, what a game that was, where it looked like the Clips were going to blow them out, and then it looked like the Clips were about to have the worst loss that we can possibly conjure up. And then Paul George to the rescue. Harden had a terrific game. Is Kawhi anywhere in the horizon here?
I don't know. You read between the lines with what Lawrence Frank said yesterday, and it sure sounds like this is going to be an extended absence for Kawhi. And you could see in the games he's played in this series, he's not himself. There's no lift. You watch his three-point shots, they're kind of bouncing short off the rim. He's not the same defensive player. I mean, Kawhi, was a sneaky MVP candidate. Like, he's not going to finish in the top 5, but he will in the top 10. I think that's warranted because he was brilliant throughout the year. He played the most games he's played, I think, in his entire career, the most minutes he's played since like the San Antonio days. So he was a workhorse for that team this year, but you watch him out there now and 50% of his former self, 60% of his former self. And look, when you go up against a good team and a smart team, they're going to find ways to take advantage of that. And I think the Mavericks did in the games that Kawhi played. It's hard to be optimistic that we're going to see him back, at least in this series. And who knows if they get the advance going forward.
Well, and then obviously the Bucks, did whatever, I guess, best they could.
Yeah.
Brook Lopez launching threes right around half court sometimes to try and keep them in games. And I guess what do you make of the Bucks' chances down 3-1 right now with Lillard missing the game with the sore Achilles and whatever's going on with Giannis right now?
Yeah, I mean, look, they were one injury away, it seemed like, from Thanasis Antetokounmpo getting minutes in a playoff game. Like, you saw Chris Middleton hobble off the floor in the second half of that game 4. It's like, who else are they going to go to on that bench? I don't see the path here. I mean, Giannis is going to push to come back, right? He's going to try to play. He's going to try. But the Bucks have to balance the desire to win this series against the desire not to see Giannis in that Kevin Durant situation, excuse me, where he is tearing his Achilles. Same thing with Damian Lillard, right? Like, he's got an Achilles strain right now. Was in a walking boot, I guess, a couple of days ago. Mm-hmm. You can't roll the dice in situations like that. And look, I don't think Indiana's good, but at full strength, I think Milwaukee's probably better. It's just, I don't think you're going to see Milwaukee at full strength for the rest of the series. That's disappointing because that's another team like Phoenix where the window to win is pretty small. I mean, Lillard is in his mid-30s, Giannis getting a little bit older as well, Chris Middleton mid to late 30s. They have to treat every year like it could be their last year to win with this group, and to see kind of this unravel for them is pretty disappointing.
Chris Mannix here from Sports Illustrated on the Rich Eisen Show. So it's interesting. There's no reseeding in the NBA playoffs like there is in the NFL. Mm-hmm. So you've got 2-3 games to 1 leads right now with the Knicks over the Sixers and the Pacers over the Bucks. And it's interesting how many folks out there were like, Knicks should not have gone for that 2 seed because you want to avoid all this stuff. You want to, and now here come the Pacers potentially coming anyway in the second round. So let's not, I guess, count chickens there. Anything can possibly happen. But what do you think is happening today with the Philadelphia 76ers and Nick Nurse and, the Knick fans, echoes of Knick fans still reverberating around, the Sixers home court? What do you think is happening in Philadelphia today?
First of all, it's not surprising that so many Knicks fans were at that game. I mean, I lived in New York for a lot of years. You hop on the Amtrak, you're at Philadelphia in 45 minutes. You look at some of the ticket pricing for Madison Square Garden. Yeah. It costs like $1,000 just to get in the building for some of these games. You can get good tickets to a Sixers game for like $100, like these playoff games. So if I'm a Knicks fan and I can't afford 4 tickets to go to see the Knicks play at MSG, I'm sure as hell hopping on that Amtrak.
You're probably still even, clearing
probably in plus. You're
probably
in
plus,
the
right? Even with the cost of the train ticket.
100%. So I'm not surprised at all to see that many. In fact, if they play Indiana, they'll probably be in Indiana too. They'll probably outnumber or at least be well heard.
But this scene in the First Union, man, is just something.
Knicks fans do have a habit of like over celebrating sometimes.
Listen, it's been dark times, but even I'm back now.
Was it last year when they played? Was it last year they played Atlanta when? I think they won the first game, and it was like pandemonium.
No, I think that was actually the first regular season win. Actually, that was that was the video of them actually winning their first regular season when I think Brunson had just arrived and Randall was there, and it's just been really dark times. And again, what Brunson stands for and how he has performed, you alluded to it at the beginning of this conversation. It's infectious. It's infectious, and hope is more. It's concrete, because obviously the Pacers are a very good team. Knicks fans, I'm sure, are looking at the Eastern Conference Finals right now and thinking, well, we just dismantled the Celtics towards the end of the regular season. I know that's just one game out of 7.
Yeah, that's the one. I know. I was at that game in Boston, and look, the Celtics spent like a month and a half with nothing to play for, really. So they were kind of going through the motions at the end of that regular season. That's the matchup I think is most problematic for New York, because
maybe for anyone in the league.
For anyone. But Jalen Brunson's the head of the snake with the Knicks, and the Celtics have waves of elite defenders they can throw at him. Derek White, Drew Holiday, Jaylen Brown. I mean, they can cause Jalen Brunson a lot of problems without having to send multiple defenders that Jalen likes is able to play off of in that sense. So that's a matchup that I don't think is great for the Knicks. I think the Pacers, though, is a good one. That's kind of a frenetic pace the Pacers want to play at, but that's a series I think the Knicks can win as well. It's just that if you get to Boston, that's a tough one. That's a tough one, I think, for them to win.
Well, again, like I said, it could be a tough one for anybody to win this year in the NBA playoffs. But I guess I digressed us when I started talking about Knicks fans. But what is going on 1 point for Embiid in the fourth quarter, all sorts of rebounding problems on their defensive glass. I'm wondering what they are thinking today. Your best guess in Philly.
Well, I think what they should be thinking is that even though we're down 3-1, this is still a winnable series, because there's certainly a scenario where they could be up 3-1 right now. I mean, the end of game 2,
right? The
NBA already admitted they blew some of those calls down the stretch. They could have won that game in New York. If they didn't blow that game in the fourth quarter, if they didn't allow OG Anunoby to turn into Ben Wallace out there defending Joel Embiid, they could have won that game as well. So I think if they can get their minds right here, if they can believe that this is not a series where their opponent is not on their level, they can win. Now, the Garden is going to be chaos on, Tuesday? The Garden's going to be nuts.
Right.
So there's going to be a lot of momentum on the side of the Knicks going into that game. But if the Sixers can ease into it, take the crowd out of that game a little bit, Embiid is still a lot of times the best player on the floor.
He had a 50-piece in game 3.
He's still ridiculous. The problem is, you look at the numbers, right? The on-off minutes for Embiid, they're awful. Like the Sixers cannot win the minutes when Embiid's not on the floor. So that's forcing Nick Nurse to play a guy that is still working his way back into shape after coming off the injury he had in the second half of the season, and it's clearly still injured. Like, you see him out there. Every time he goes down the wrong way, he comes up a little bit gimpy. So the combination of that and Nick Nurse having to keep him out there so often in the first 3 quarters that you see a lesser version in the fourth, that's a problem the Sixers have to solve going to this Game 5.
Chris Mannix here on the Rich Eisen Show. Game 4 of Thunder Pelicans has been moved to Galveston, Texas,
yes,
if I'm not mistaken.
I believe, yes.
Is that where it is?
I think they should just wave the white flag on...
Oh my God, Barkley talking about sending the team to Galveston.
And last night he also found a way to insult San Antonio as well. Yes,
yep,
his usual.
It's
the only things only Barkley can get away with. Like, you and I sit up here and insult the figure of the fairer sex, and we're gonna probably get fired, or at least Barkley is just like it's just a gimmick. It's great.
So they're next up for them will be the winner of the Clippers Mavs. So that'll be, if they sweep the Pelicans out and then just watch the Clippers and Mavericks beat the crap out of each other, play 7. Which series right now do you think has got the best chance of going 7? Is that the one? Because obviously you got Cavs and Magic as well.
That's a weird series. Like the home team or the road team can't seem to score, and that's surprising on Cleveland's part, because watching those first 2 games, you just didn't think the Magic, who have had problems all season long scoring, that's been their biggest weakness. Great defensive team, can't score a lick. Watching the Magic roll over them in the way they did in these last 2 games makes you think that can be a 7-game series. I would probably pick that to go 7 first. I think the winner of Game 5 against Clippers and Mavericks, good chance they can win that Game 6 and close it out there. But that Cavs Magic series, I can see the home team winning all the way through in those games.
Which second-round series do you think might actually happen that you're looking forward to the most?
Oh, Denver, Minnesota.
That's it, right?
That's great.
I mean, you didn't even stutter.
No,
that's
and look, Minnesota made a statement in that first round. We talked about Anthony Edwards, but Minnesota, there were a lot of people that still wondered, like, this Timberwolves team with its two bigs and, Mike Conley, is he going to be enough defensively at the point guard spot? Is that enough for them to win at a playoff level? Can you play Gobert and Cat together in the fourth quarter of playoff games? Well, they can, and they can win. Now you get the big boys. You get the real test. You get Gobert against Jokic, and they're not going to guard each other because they don't do that much. They put Towns on Jokic, but that is a great matchup. The point guard matchup the guard matchup with Conley and Jamal Murray and Anthony Edwards. That's just a fun series from start to finish.
I love it. I can't wait for that. So, Chris Mannix here on the Rich Eisen Show. You just said that the statement that the Timberwolves made in their sweeping out the Suns was a significant statement, and it is, but it's not nearly as significant as this statement right here of that we have here, Mike Tyson running.
Oh, I knew you'd go there.
Hold on. Can we get the sound on this, Mike, please? This is most important. There you go. So that's him. I'm coming for you. That was a couple weeks. I'm assuming that was Jake Paul that he's referring to.
I believe so. And we have we have rules now.
We do. You were saying this is, by the way, this is our favorite storyline that we've seen grow with you.
Yes.
In your third appearance here in the last few weeks, that this was a reality of Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul, a fight that you look at with some skepticism.
Not skepticism. I look at it. So the news today is that it will be a sanctioned pro fight, which I think is a little bit goofy, right? Like, I mean,
a little bit goofy.
You don't like.
Okay.
If any other 58-year-old went to a commission and said, "I would like to fight a pro fight," 99 times out of 100, that 58-year-old is overruled, right? Like it's like when in the Rocky movie, when Rocky comes back, right? And the Philadelphia Commission, Pennsylvania Commission is like, no, this is not a good idea. And then they're right. You shouldn't be getting hit in the head when you're 58 years old. It's as simple as that. It's also kind of a little odd because they're sanctioning it apparently as a pro fight, but it's 8 2-minute rounds.
Yes.
Like men's fights are 8 3-minute rounds. So there's still uncertainty. Look, this is what Jake and Mike both wanted. This is what they believe correctly, I think, will help sell the fight even more. Tyson versus Paul, real fight. I guarantee you, mark my words, they will get one of these idiot sanctioning bodies to put a title of some kind on the line. It'll be like the WBC crossover championship or the WBA 8-round heavyweight championship of the world. It's one of these greedy leeches of sanctioning bodies will put a belt on the line for this fight. I am sure of it.
My only follow-up question to that is, so what? Right? Let's go.
I plan to be there.
Let's go.
And
well,
right?
I mean, but it's just like I don't like. Look, I'm still a purist at heart, and
yes,
I'm a
sorry
purist
to
at heart. Like I'm
offend.
still the guy that loves the guys that fight for regional belts, that shows up at a fight at the very first bell for the very first right fight rings.
Yeah.
I'm no one in the crowd. I'm there to watch that. I don't like when you kind of make a bit of a mockery with the belt part. The belt part is all I really care about.
Got it. Okay.
The sanctioning part, I'm a little iffy with. The fight itself, I've said this many times sitting here. I love it. I'll be there in Texas to watch that fight. I think it's fascinating to kind of see this show unfold and see if Mike Tyson can turn back the clock and land one haymaker
That's it.
to the head of a guy that's 30 years younger than him or will be 30 years younger than him on fight night. Can he do it? Because if he can't do it in the first round, now all that video's nice, the sprinting and the pad work, but he's still going to be 58 in the ring, and Jake Paul's still going to be a 27, 28-year-old boxer who is a pretty good boxer, I should point out at this point.
Yeah, but I mean, come on now.
He's not Mike Tyson.
Look at him. Just like any draft, we just came up the NFL draft.
Yes.
All it takes is one team. All it takes is one team to make somebody a first rounder or a second rounder or whatever, professional. It takes one punch, one punch, one moment.
Yeah, now we're channeling Eminem on that one. Yeah, just one.
By the way, who is at the NFL draft?
I know.
Okay, so yeah, man, like that's what we're all in on it.
And that's what the audience will be all in on.
But you're not in all on it.
No, I'm all in on it in that respect. Again, like the purist in me says, like, don't say. I don't want this to be a loss on Mike Tyson's resume.
It's going to
this
be.
doesn't.
This now
I don't want
counts.
to look at Mike Tyson's box rec and see the last fight of his professional boxing career, which comes nearly 2 decades after the previous fight, to be a loss to Jake Paul. Everything else, I'm on board with.
Okay.
I mean, the buildup is already going to be great. Fight week's going to be outrageous. They're going to sell a bunch of tickets. I love that they put the rematch between Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano on that card. That is a massive women's boxing fight, the biggest fight you can make in women's boxing. I called their first fight at Madison Square Garden. They sold out Madison Square Garden, the big room, sold the whole thing out. They'll put a ton of butts in seats for that. That is a real fight they're having as the co-main event. And then I'll be there waiting. Like when they drop the music and DMX comes on and Mike Tyson comes out in the towel. I love it. I love everything about. They're just little things. It's like, does this have to be a loss for Mike? Does there have to be like 3 judges there scoring it? Do we have to?
No, see, you're looking at it the wrong way.
Mannix, newsflash.
It's a win
not
for
going to
Mike.
be a loss.
It's a win for Mike. It's a win for Mike. His last fight will be a W as a 31 years older than the guy he's just beaten. And
I think you're underestimating Jake, because Jake's pretty good. Like, Jake is not.
No, I get it.
You know, Jake's not one of these kind of other influencers that's out there doing their thing. Like, I've been to his gym in Puerto Rico. Like, Jake takes this stuff seriously. He brings in like former champions to spar with him. He's got great training staff.
I get it. I'm just saying, I don't know what it is. Maybe because I'm 54. I want to see if I could just, have one last moment in the sun.
Would you volunteer to get punched in the head?
Not at all. Not at all. It's different endeavors. I'm just kind of broadening out what it means writ large. Chris, 14-ounce gloves. Does that matter?
Not really.
Okay, because I know that was one of the metrics you were looking forward. You wanted to see how many rounds, how long they're going to be, what the gloves.
It's good that they're bigger. Yes, that's a good thing.
For who?
I think probably for Jake. Like,
okay. All right.
I think 12-ounce would have been better for Mike.
Okay, so he gets the gloves he wants.
The way it goes, the smaller the gloves, the better for the power puncher, right? You want less in between your fists and somebody's face. So that would have been better for Mike. I don't know how this thing plays out, because look, it is one thing to look at Mike sprinting on Instagram or wailing away on some guys on the pads. I want to see the next 30 seconds. I want to see the next 3 minutes. I want to know how many days he's in the gym and working and how ready he is to go 8 2-minute rounds. The 2-minute rounds works for Mike too. Like, that's better. If it was 3-minute rounds, I think he'd be in a world of trouble, because I don't think he can be Mike Tyson for 3 minutes. He might be able to do it for 1 and then kind of hold on for the last minute of each round.
All right, so Jake gets the gloves he wants, and Mike gets a minute per round shaved off, and we fans get the belief that one punch, that's all it takes.
30 million
Fighter's
some
chance.
odd fans probably. I've been trying to calculate how many people would watch. I think anywhere from 30 to 50 million is like a broad scope. But I do think globally, though, again, adding Katie Taylor to that. Katie Taylor is the biggest star in Irish sports history, men or women. Like, she is massive over in Ireland. That's going to draw a huge European audience to watch that. Netflix is a global platform.
Yeah.
It's going to be a huge event.
Things I never thought I would say. It's crazy that a I guess to put it this way, that a Tom Brady roast would help get the juices flowing.
I love that Brady's doing that.
Netflix live sporting events for a Mike Tyson Jake Paul fight.
Are there going to be punches pulled on Brady in this?
I don't believe so. Well, no.
No.
Okay.
Right?
Good.
I mean,
Yes.
Sarah Tiana is part of the writing staff, correct?
yeah,
So
yeah.
you pretty much know what's
I
happening.
know what's happening, yeah.
Good, because I love
be
those.
great.
Those roasts are my favorite thing to watch. I rewatch all of them all the time.
Yeah, there'll be no padding between the punch.
Everything's on the table then, right? Like,
pretty much, yeah.
everything, because you gotta.
Thanks for coming on, sir.
My pleasure.
Appreciate it. It's Chris Mannix right here, everybody. Sports Illustrated's Chris Mannix. I'll tell you what's next is you coming back here in a few weeks, talking about the NBA playoffs, and we'll see the latest Mike Tyson video.
Lakers and Clippers being, if they don't stay in, that
Oh, well, we'll have you on the Zoom.
see in Boston.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.